On Monday morning, after the weekly meeting, everyone else left, but the general manager asked me to stay behind. He forwarded me a resume. It belonged to a woman in her early 30s, delicate features, quiet demeanor, a graduate from a 211 university. But none of that was the issue. The real concern was that she had been out of work for over 6 years. "What's your take on this?" I asked after reviewing the document. The general manager replied casually, "Our company's legal counsel, Attorney Lin, sent this over, asking if we had a suitable position for her. We've worked together for years. It's a favor, really. See if you can arrange something." A suitable position? That was out of the question. Despite her decent academic background, she had barely a year of work experience before stepping away to be a full-time mom. At this point, the only field she was truly familiar with was family life. I voiced my concerns, and the general manager agreed that we should at least give her an interview. If she wasn't a fit, we'd simply let Attorney Lin know. Before wrapping up, he sighed and remarked, "You women are really something. So many of you just quit working for years, entrusting your entire future to a man. That's a high-risk investment. Even I wouldn't dare." From the perspective of a woman and a young mother myself, I disagreed with his sentiment. This wasn't just about women's choices. The expectations placed on women were simply too harsh. Society demands that we be devoted wives and mothers, care for our in-laws, yet still remain financially independent and effortlessly beautiful. Of course, I believe in striving for my own success. But if every woman had the ability to do it all, then what would men be needed for? After all, I alone would be enough. That said, this was my boss, the general manager. I wasn't about to start an argument with him. Instead, I simply nodded and smiled. "Understood, I'll take care of it." The woman sitting before me was well-dressed, perhaps too well-dressed. Everything she wore looked brand new, as if she had bought it just for this interview. She perched nervously on the edge of her chair, flashing a timid smile. Her hands, pale and delicate, were clasped tightly on her lap. "Shen Qingyu?" I asked. She nodded quickly. "Hello." "There's no need to be nervous." I offered a reassuring smile. "Could you tell me a bit about your past experience?" "Primarily work-related, but personal learning is fine too." Her face flushed slightly with embarrassment. "I don't have much work experience." As expected, she hadn't pursued much additional learning during her years as a full-time mom. Aside from parenting knowledge, she had little else to offer. Her university education? Mostly forgotten, except for vague conceptual memories. Perhaps she had spent so long immersed in domestic life that stepping back into the world now felt jarring, like someone who had spent a single day in the mountains only to return and find that 1,000 years had passed. When I asked what kind of role she felt suited her, she hesitated for a long moment before biting her lip and saying, "If possible, I'd like to try a market analysis position. I did a little of that before. As for other jobs," she laughed awkwardly, "I don't really know what they involve." After the interview, I prepared to call Attorney Lin. From a professional standpoint, there really wasn't a suitable position for her. No matter what role she took, she'd have to start from the very bottom. But many of our department heads were only in their late 20s. None of them would be keen on hiring a big sister who needed to be retrained from scratch. On a personal level, I couldn't help but feel frustrated with women like her. A complete lack of crisis awareness, no ongoing efforts at self-improvement. Was it really my job to clean up the mess? Coincidentally, Attorney Lin was nearby on business. After hearing my thoughts, he paused for a moment before inviting me to lunch. Shen Qingyu wasn't Attorney Lin's friend. She was the ex-wife of one of his recent divorce case clients. Normally, Attorney Lin didn't take on these types of cases, but a friend had asked for a favor, so he had reluctantly agreed. During the process, he picked up on certain details that suggested his client, Shen Qingyu's ex-husband, had already found someone new. He was divorcing his wife of 6 years for a younger woman. Shen Qingyu, however, refused to accept the divorce, so her husband filed a lawsuit. During the trial, the main dispute wasn't about assets, it was about custody. The husband argued. I'm a local. My parents can help with school pickups and drop-offs, but she's from another city with no support. I have an income. She doesn't. She's been out of work for years and has lost her ability to function independently. I have strong social connections that will benefit the child, while she has spent her days locked at home with no friends. That will negatively impact our child's development. He rattled off point after point until the judge finally turned to Shin Ching-yu and asked if she had anything to say in response. Her eyes were red as she whispered, I've been with you since I was 19. Can't you show me a little kindness? Predictably, she lost the case. Years of marriage, and she walked away with nothing. At this point, I felt a twinge of sympathy, but I still didn't understand what this had to do with Attorney Lin. After all, he had been representing the ex-husband. Attorney Lin cleared his throat, his expression shifting slightly. After the trial, I ran into her in the hallway. She was crouched in a corner, crying. I felt guilty, so I walked over and apologized. I thought she might resent me, but she just shook her head and said it wasn't my fault, that she had brought this on herself. Since then, we've kept in touch. Shin Ching-yu is actually a very kind, gentle woman. I just want to help her however I can. I glanced at him, the widowed man who had lived alone for years, and a thought flickered through my mind. I smiled. I'll look after her. Don't worry. Attorney Lin murmured, Thank you. Shin Ching-yu had been working for 2 weeks when Tan Hong, her supervisor in the marketing department, came to see me for the third time. Her complaints escalated from mere grievances to a firm request to have Shin Ching-yu dismissed. I gestured for Tan Hong to sit and poured her a glass of water. Calm down. The spring season tends to make tempers flare. She scoffed. Sue, can you not joke around? This isn't just a bad mood. I'm downright frustrated. You stuck me with this woman, and now I'm paying for it. I hadn't explained Shin Ching-yu's situation to Tan Hong. First, she was the tough, career-driven type, never married, no children, so she might not even understand. Second, it was a matter of privacy. Lin, the attorney, had told me because there was no other option, but I couldn't just go spreading it around. All right, my bad, I said with a smile. But at least tell me what she did this time. You always say she doesn't know anything, but I already told you, just treat her like a fresh graduate and teach her. Why are you getting worked up again? Tan Hong raised an eyebrow. Sue, this time it's not just me. Everyone in the department thinks she's not here to help. She's here to make our lives harder. I'd already heard the whispers in the office. Women have a strange habit of thinking the restroom is a safe place to gossip, never realizing it's the one place where walls truly have ears. More than once, I'd overheard employees in the marketing department mocking her. She's a disaster. The work she does, we just have to clean up after her. She can't even use Excel properly. Her charts are a mess. How are we supposed to use this junk? I even heard someone venting in a voice message from the next stall, complaining that they had to stay late because Shin Ching-yu couldn't write a competitor analysis report. Some were openly sarcastic. She's too old to be working. She should just stay home as a housewife. She's so bad at everything, and we can't even say it to her face. It's just making things difficult for the rest of us. I had spoken to Shin Ching-yu once, just to check in. She looked uneasy as she admitted she had indeed been out of the field for too long. While she still remembered some of the analytical tools, she struggled with how to use them properly again. Then, she hurriedly added that she had been studying every night, trying to pick things up again. I took the college entrance exam, you know. I have at least some ability to learn. Seeing the dark circles under her eyes, I softened a little. Asked if she had reviewed other people's analysis reports to learn from them. She froze. No one's given me any. That was how the workplace worked, especially in Shin Ching-yu's case. Everyone knew she hadn't gotten in the usual way. That alone made her an outsider, someone hard to place. Tan Hong had probably been planning to push her out from the start. When I suggested she let Shin Ching-yu review past reports, Tan Hong's expression stiffened. She tried to argue. That's someone else's way of thinking. She should develop her own insights and perspectives. Market analysis isn't just about copying others. Two people can look at the same competitor move, and one will see the risks while the other won't. If she's just going to mimic others, then what's the point of having her analyze anything? Then, with a scoff, she lowered her voice. Honestly, I don't even know how she got hired. I sipped my coffee and looked at her. You don't think I brought her in, do you? She hesitated, then quickly denied it. No, Sue, I didn't mean that. I just don't like people getting in through the back door. The rest of us had to fight our way in. I know. That's why you're giving me too much credit. I don't have that kind of pull. I looked down, taking another slow sip of coffee. Just be patient and teach her a bit more. I saw she was working late last night. She's trying. She might be out of practice, but she's a graduate from a top university. Surely, she's teachable? Maybe my words carried a hint of something more because, for the next 2 weeks, Tan Hong didn't come back to complain. Before long, however, Lin, the attorney, came by to pick up Shin Qingyu, and others saw it too. Those curious about her background must have pieced things together by now. And for Shin Qingyu, that was not a good thing. No matter how capable Lin was to the company, he was just an external partner. He might have been able to get her a job here, but he certainly couldn't shield her from office politics. A few days later, I had to stay late to coordinate with our overseas colleagues. By the time I was done, it was already past 9. As I passed the conference room, I saw the lights still on. It was the marketing team, reviewing an analysis report, most likely preparing for the monthly business meeting the next day. I paused by the door, just as I heard a young woman's voice. Shen, I already showed you last time. Excel sheets need to be linked with formulas so that when you change one number, the other tables update automatically. What is this? Did you manually input every single number? Shen Qingyu's voice was timid. I'm not very familiar with formulas. I thought I just needed to enter the numbers. You thought? The woman cut her off. This was the simplest task. And look at what you did. Now we have to redo everything from scratch just because of you. Do you have any idea how much trouble you've caused? The others chimed in, all criticizing her for slowing them down. Shin Qingyu kept apologizing, saying she would stay late to fix it. Finally, Tan Hong spoke. Enough. She's not like the rest of you, and you all know it. What's done is done. Just focus on fixing it. The room fell silent. Some exchanged glances. Others smirked in contempt. Shin Qingyu's face turned red. Suddenly, she stood up, covered her mouth, and rushed out. As she pushed open the door, our eyes met. She froze for a second before quickly stepping around me and running toward the restroom. I sent a quick message to Shuizhong, asking him to wait a bit longer, then followed after her. Inside, she had locked herself in a stall, crying uncontrollably. I leaned against the sink and waited quietly. After what felt like a long time, she finally came out with red, puffy eyes. She stood before me like a scolded child. Manager Sue, I'm sorry. I've caused trouble for you. Glancing around to make sure we were alone, I led her to my office and handed her a cup of chrysanthemum tea. Why are you crying? Do you feel wronged? She clutched the glass, her eyes welling up again. No, I just never thought I'd end up like this. So useless.
You sat beside her.
Back then, you had a good job. Why did you leave to be a full-time mom? She spoke softly. I got pregnant not long after getting married. My husband, she hesitated. The baby's father really wanted the child. Originally, his mother was supposed to help take care of him, but just before I gave birth, she hurt her back. And my son was always sick as a baby, constantly in and out of the hospital. I just couldn't bear to leave him with someone else. Was it his father who asked you to quit your job and stay home to take care of the child? I asked her. Shin Qingyu nodded in acknowledgement. When my daughter Anren was little, I was very busy with work. There were times when I considered quitting my job to stay home with her, fearing that I might fail at both roles otherwise. After all, Shuizhong could support both of us. But Shuizhong was against it. He believed that beyond being his wife and Anren's mother, I was, first and foremost, an independent person who needed friends, a sense of achievement, and social recognition. So, he reached out to many people to find the best nanny for us. At one point, we even hired two, one for the child and one for household chores. At the same time, he made an effort to adjust his schedule to accommodate me and our child's needs. This arrangement, though consuming more than half of my salary, freed me from the burdens of daily tasks, allowing me to focus on my job while giving my child quality time outside of work. I shared my experience with her and then asked, "Have you planned how long you'll be a full-time mom? You can't stay unemployed forever, right?" She silently shook her head, her tears falling into the cup, creating ripples in the water. As the ripples gradually faded, Shin Chingyu said softly, "At that time, I thought we could love each other for a lifetime. He said men should work outside while women take care of the home, and we worked hard together. My parents and relatives all tried to talk me out of it, but he was really good to me." Xiao Shirtu, that's my son. He's really adorable. After I quit my job and went home, I put a lot of effort into nursing him back to health. By the time he was 2, he could eat on his own. At 3, if he fell, he'd get up and say, "Mom, I'm okay." When we went grocery shopping together, he'd help carry the bags and say, "Mom, you must be tired." As she spoke, a smile appeared on her face. She wiped away her tears and said, "Even now, thinking of my son, I still feel it was all worth it." But you lost custody of your son. While I sympathized with her, I had to remind her of reality. Her son would eventually grow up, but she had no clear direction for her own life. Sure enough, her smile faded. "Yeah, I have nothing now, and I really can't provide a good life for him." The other day, my son asked me why he couldn't live with his mom. I really had no answer. "That's exactly it," I said, shifting to face her directly. "If this continues, don't you think Xiao Shirtu might end up looking down on you? We're both mothers. We need to be someone our children can be proud of. Crying won't solve anything. The only solution is to push forward and work harder. No one else can do this for you." Shin Chingyu met my gaze for a moment before nodding firmly. "I understand. Thank you." A few days later, I transferred Shin Chingyu from the marketing department to the business department as a business assistant. Compared to market analysis, this position was more foundational and junior. The benefit was that she could use it to relearn essential office skills and familiarize herself with the company's operations by working on bid proposals and contracts. Arranging this transfer took some effort on my part. Fortunately, the manager of the business department, Li, was also a mother. Compared to someone like Tan Hong, she was much more understanding and compassionate. In her new role, Shin Chingyu's strengths started to shine. Her patience, attention to detail, and sense of responsibility. She often stayed late, meticulously cross-checking bid proposals against tender documents, ensuring there wasn't a single misplaced punctuation mark. Gradually, she earned the acceptance of her new colleagues and even started handling some bidding projects independently. Because of her gentle and soft-spoken nature, some clients preferred communicating with her. Even the technical team had good things to say about her when collaborating. Perhaps because I was the first person she trusted in the company, she grew quite close to me, and I enjoyed spending time with her. She wasn't sharp-tongued or overly competitive, just warm and graceful, like a traditional, delicate beauty. Over time, our relationship became more personal than that of ordinary colleagues. She would even bring her son, Xiao Shirtu, over to play with my daughter, Anren, on weekends. Whenever she visited our home, she would either cook delicious meals or bake treats. I had to admit, while she seemed inexperienced in the workplace, her culinary skills were exceptional. Xiao Shirtu was polite and patient, and Anren adored her handsome little playmate. As for me, I couldn't get enough of Shin Chingyu's homemade cheesecake. What I didn't expect was that this friendship would eventually bring her trouble. 3 months after she joined the company, an incident occurred. I always knew she wasn't a strong-willed person, but I hadn't realized just how easy she was to bully. "Su Yun, you have to help me this time." Zhao Ziwan said that if I don't take care of this, I won't be allowed to see Xiao Shirtu again. At Starbucks, I looked at the woman across from me, wiping away her tears, and felt a surge of anger rising inside me. To strangers, I could always maintain a professional smile and communicate without letting emotions get in the way, just as Shuizhong said. But when it came to people close to me, I had little patience for nonsense. And right now, I really wanted to scold Shen Qingyu. The situation was this. Her ex-husband, Zhao Ziyuan, was bidding on a crucial project, one that could determine whether his company met its annual targets. Coincidentally, the client for this project was none other than our company, and the decision-maker for the entire project was my husband, Shuizhong. Zhao Ziyuan must have realized that, among all the competing firms, his own company didn't stand much of a chance. So, he set his sights on Shen Qingyu. Since she couldn't bear to be separated from her son, he told her that if she wanted to see him, she needed to make arrangements. If he couldn't get a private meeting with Shuizhong, then she could forget about seeing her son. That was his plan, simple and crude. He didn't even bother with sweet talk or manipulative persuasion. There was no way either Shuizhong or I would agree to this demand. Have you gotten so used to being bullied by him? I snapped. What right does he have to keep you from seeing your child? Tell him if he dares to do that, you'll take him to court. Shen Qingyu shook her head, eyes red. It's useless. Even though the court ruled that I have visitation rights, he said he has ways to prevent me from seeing Xiao Shirtu. My anger flared.
Fine.
Let's say Shuizhong and I agree to meet him today. What about next time? What if he comes back later and says that if he doesn't win the bid, you won't get to see your son? Tell me, do you have the power to make him win? Do I? Shen Qingyu, can you please start handling problems rationally? Shen Qingyu left with red-rimmed eyes. She was gentle and obedient, but she wasn't someone who couldn't distinguish right from wrong. We all knew this matter wasn't over yet. Sure enough, after Shen Qingyu rejected Zhao Ziyuan, he made it clear that he wouldn't let her see their child every week anymore. And he followed through on his words. When Shen Qingyu went to pick up little Shirtu from school, the teacher told her that the child's father had given strict instructions. Only he and the grandparents were allowed to pick up the child, no one else. When she went back to her old home to see her son, she couldn't even enter the building. The entry code had been changed, and no one answered the doorbell. She called Zhao Ziyuan numerous times, but he completely ignored her. When the bidding results came out and Zhao Ziyuan confirmed that he hadn't won, he called Shen Qingyu and lashed out at her, cursing her harshly. He even threatened, I gave you a choice. Since you're useless, you'll never see your son again. At that moment, Shen Qingyu was sitting beside me in my car. I had just driven her home, and we were right outside her community gate. Hearing this, I snatched the phone away and said, Zhao, listen to me. Visitation rights are a legal entitlement for Qingyu. You don't get to decide. If you still refuse to let her see her child this week, get ready for a court summons. Shen Qingyu turned pale beside me. Mrs. Xue. The man on the other end sneered. I'm not afraid of that. You and your husband are the reason she's in this mess. Some friends you are, you couldn't even lift a finger to help. Shen Qingyu suddenly grabbed the phone. Zhao Ziyuan, do you have any shame at all? Who do you think you are? Why would they help you? Her voice choked with emotion, and tears welled up in her eyes. Yes, I admit it. I'm in a terrible place right now. I was married to you for so many years and ended up with nothing. But that has nothing to do with anyone else. It was my own blindness that made me mistake a beast for a man. I accept my fate. The man on the other end cursed again. Shen Qingyu took a deep breath and said, Enough, Zhao Ziyuan. See you in court. She hung up and covered her face with her hands. I patted her shoulder. Don't worry. We'll talk to Lawyer Lin and figure something out. If nothing else works, we'll sue him. One time in detention will teach him a lesson. Lawyer Lin arrived quickly. Shen Qingyu made dinner, and we discussed the situation over the meal. In the end, we decided to have Lawyer Lin negotiate with Zhao Ziyuan. A lawyer naturally had an advantage in these matters, and Lin had been very dedicated to helping Shin Qingyu. I asked, "Do you think we have a good chance?" "Yes," Lin said confidently. I raised an eyebrow. He glanced at Shin Qingyu and then added, "When I was his lawyer, I already noticed signs that he was cheating. But at the time, I wasn't responsible for gathering evidence, so I didn't look deeper. Later." Lin hesitated upon seeing Shin Qingyu's pale face, but she asked directly, "You found evidence?" He nodded. "A friend who asked me to take on the case. Last year, I happened to see some photos in his social media posts. Zhao Ziyuan's affair didn't just start recently. That made things easier. At least for a lawyer, this provided plenty of leverage. Zhao Ziyuan wasn't stupid. He should know what that meant. When I got home, I was still fuming. "What's making you so angry?" Shuizhong said, massaging my shoulders. "Your temper, I swear." Hearing that mommy was upset, little Anrin ran over on her short legs and looked up at me. "Who's the big bad guy that made mommy angry?" "Anrin is a good girl." I laughed. "How do you know it was a bad guy?" The little one said, "Because mommy is a good person." I picked her up and kissed her. "Anrin is mommy's little angel." She's protective, just like her dad," Shuizhong commented. Then he took out his phone, tapped away for a while, and finally showed me the screen. Nearly all his professional contacts had received the same message from him. Friendly reminder. Zhao Ziyuan, male, general manager of company name, lousy character, bad credit. Think twice before working with him. I didn't expect him to send out something so blunt. I burst into laughter. He pointed at his cheek. "Mrs. Su, isn't it unfair if you only reward our daughter?" Of course, I had to be fair. I leaned in and gave him a loud kiss. Lawyer Lin was indeed a master negotiator. After he stepped in, Zhao Ziyuan still hurled a lot of insults, but in the end, he relented. Shin Qingyu was finally able to pick up her child from school every Friday evening again. Perhaps because she had completely given up on him, even when she had to return little Shirtu on Saturday night and endure Zhao Ziyuan's attitude, she no longer let it get to her. Half a year later, Shin Qingyu had become a highly capable business assistant. She could skillfully prepare impressive bidding documents according to the requirements, remind the technical team about competing companies, and suggest strategic adjustments to optimize bids. At the end of the year, the company held its Outstanding New Employee selection. The business department nominated Shin Qingyu. After a discussion at the general manager's office, 10 outstanding new employees were selected, including her. After the meeting, I ran into Shin Qingyu in the hallway. She was introducing a new hire to different colleagues, following the company's mentorship protocol for new employees. I stood to the side and watched her. She greeted everyone warmly, exchanged pleasantries, and asked them to guide her trainee. Her every move exuded confidence and poise. She was no longer the hesitant, lost, and newly divorced stay-at-home mom from before. Just like I had once told her, choosing to be a stay-at-home mom wasn't necessarily a mistake, but she couldn't stop growing because of it. Now, she had returned to the workforce. She didn't start at a high level, nor did she have any shortcuts. She simply found a direction and began moving toward a bigger future. I took out my phone and sent a message to Lawyer Lin. Finally, mission accomplished. The rest is up to you. I hoped that this time, she would find the right person.